Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Game Studios. I'm Craig, and today we're going to go over a couple units and weapon profiles that I think the Tyranids are going to be struggling with for the rest of 10th edition, unfortunately. These are 5 of them that I think are under strength. Not by a ton, but by 1 degree or so. They're units that just aren't fantastic, and if they got their strength buff just a little bit, be in a whole different place for the unit. So I'm going to go over those today, see, what you guys think about them, give my perspective why I think they should be the way they are, and just have a little conversation with it. So if that sounds good, do like and subscribe to stay updated on all of our content here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios. Thank you members for supporting us. Check out in the link description, and let's dive into today's video. So in today's video, we're going to go over, like I said, 5 weapons or units that strength is just a little bit underperforming where I personally think it should be. Main things to this is that I'm not saying something is 2 or 3 strength lower. It is just specifically 1 strength. If these things got 1 strength bump, it'd be a whole different game for these units. Unfortunately, a lot of them are just really lacking right now in their damage output, and they're supposed to be damaging units, so it's unfortunate. There's a ranged weapon on here. Mainly they're melee weapons because Tyranids are really lacking in their melee punch right now. We'll see what GW does about these changes. I reckon they won't do anything to actually fix the stats of them because they typically don't change data sheets once the Codex is out. Maybe they'll get a point drop in the unit. It'll help, but it won't be really what the unit needs. So with that, let's dive into our first unit, and that is the Heavy Venom Cannon. And for a long time, pretty much since the start of Tyranids, the Heavy Venom Cannon has been our premier anti-tank ranged weapon. I mean, this has been going on Carnifexes in the Hive Tyrant since their creation, really. Screamers didn't have it, but obviously Hive Tyrants had it forever, and when Carnifexes got their new kit way back in 4th edition, or 5th edition, the Heavy Venom Cannon was what they could take. In the past, this weapon has really matched close to the highest toughness that really was in the game to make it an even fight. On the 9th edition, it was a strength 8 or strength 9 gun. Really, toughness 8, 9 were the top of the toughness. So 4s and 3s, depending on what vehicles you're shooting at, which was really good. Now, when the toughness chart has been stretched in 10th edition, it's only strength 9. And that means when a lot of the tanks, vehicles, monsters are toughness 10, and many of them even 11 and 12, the Heavy Venom Cannon just does not pack the punch that it used to. Add on to the fact that now it's back to D3 shots, so it's only 1 to 3 shots. On a Carnifex, it's only hitting on 4s. Being strength 9 means it's really not great at killing tanks, and it's more of a anti-infantry killer, but the infantry that needs to be targeting is not going to be all that susceptible to an AP2 shot. So unfortunately, it's just not that great. I really think that if this was strength 10, you'd see a lot more of them being able to wound a majority of Space Marine vehicles and other monsters and vehicles in the battlefield on 4s. Still struggle against some of the tougher stuff, but it would just be nice if this was at least strength 10 to be competent against a lot of vehicles. Now we're going to go into unit 2, 2.5. These are kind of the same boat, so I'm including them as 1. And this is the Hive Tyrant and the Swarm Lord. Their melee profile specifically on the Bone Sword and Bone Sabers. These guys have always been one of the top leader in melee damage output, big monsters in the Tyranid codexes all the way from back. The Bone Sword was one of the nastiest weapons. Maybe it didn't have a ton of attacks in past editions, but it always had a high strength, and when it actually hit, it hit pretty hard. It just didn't hit with that many attacks. It wasn't necessarily a tank slayer. Like, it's not going to compete. It never competed with Old One Eye outside of the Reaper. It never competed with, say, Old One Eye and his ability to punch a tank, but this was an all-around great weapon that could do great damage against a tank, elite infantry, and the small guys if you really needed to. Now, again, this weapon did not gain any strength when the toughness chart was stretched, meaning that this thing is stuck at strength 9, just like the heavy venom cannon. Same with the bone sabers. They're stuck at strength 9. They cannot do much against that toughness 10 plus of a tank. They do have twin linked, which is nice, but you're still fishing for 5s and 6s on their attacks, and they don't have, well, the Hive Tyrant doesn't have a ton to begin with, and at a lower AP, they're going to be saving a good chunk of these. It is unfortunate. I think, if these were strength 10, you would see them be used a bit more, along with some point cuts, but they'd just be a bit more effective at all of their targets. Yes, they're still going to struggle against the toughest of tanks, but against those medium armored tanks and below, they'll do just fine, as which they should. So yeah, that's this one. I think it's just a little bit under strength, but unfortunately, it is what it is. At least they have twin linked going for them. Unit number 3, we have the Hormigaunt Talons. So this Hormigants have been a classic Tyranid unit from the very beginning. Just a whole host of little attacks that are supposed to just eventually slice up your opponent through death by 1,000 cut style. For the longest time, and forever really, they've been strength 3 like they are now. However, in previous editions, they've had access to multiple things that give them bonuses to that strength to make it not as bad at being a lower strength as it is. They previously had access to wound roll rerolls. They had adrenal glands, which always gave them an extra strength, putting up the strength 4. You had in 9th edition the Behemoth attachment, which gave them +1 strength, so you'd be at strength 4 there. You could stack adrenal glands on top of that. Again, encompass all of this with the toughness chart being stretched, and these guys went from wounding Gravis on 5s to now wounding Gravis on 6s, Space Marines on 5s and 6s, and it's just with their sheer volume of attacks, it really isn't enough to do damage at just strength 3. AP1 is great. I really love to see the AP1 on them, but it's just, I mean, you could hit 5 intercessors with 20 Hormigants, and I'm not even confident that they would kill the 5 intercessors just because of the hitting on 4s and 5s. Realistically, when you, on average, you're looking at killing maybe 4 of them if you're lucky. So that's just unfortunate. If you got that up to wounding them on 4s, you definitely kill the whole squad of 5, which is it's just sad to see it be the way. I wish strength 4 made them it'd be a little bit more of a threat and a little more likely used, in my opinion. In a similar vein, again, we have the Gene Stealers. Again, another very classic threat. These guys go all the way back to being just absolute monsters to deal with on the battlefield. Yes, they've always been glass cannon-y, but unfortunately these days, they still have the glass and they lack the cannon. They've always been known to match up against Tyranids, given that classic Space Hulk matchup. Terminators, over the years, have been buffed greatly. They are now T5 with 3 wounds, and obviously they're 2-up save and whatever other shenanigans they're holding, depending on their faction or loadout and stuff. Gene Stealers, they have not seen quite the buffs. They've actually seen some buffs and then toned down to nerfs now in the state they are in 10th edition. They gained an extra wound, so they're a little bit tougher. They still only have a 5-up save. They are T4 still, but they're only strength 4. They used to have access to full reroll to wounds if they were targeting a unit on an objective, which was fantastic if you combine that with the devastating wound ability. Now it's just reroll 1s to wound, which is not nearly as good considering the units you are going to be targeting with the Gene Stealer squad are likely toughness 5 and above. There will be targets for sure that are T4 or T3, which is going to be absolutely murderous for these guys. But likely, again, it is T5 and above, meaning you're wounding on 5s, re-rolling 1s, fishing for 6s for dev wounds. If you have the Broodlord in there, it's just not great. Yes, a big block of 10 can hit really hard, and they can do some damage, but they're also very expensive for all of that. Yes, it's a lot of wounds and stuff. I just think Gene Stealers would have been so much better, so much more likely used if they were strength 5. It's still toughness 4, obviously. It allowed them to compete with Terminators. I think their point cost would be justified, and Maybe you'd see back to the 5th edition classic list of 30 Gene Stealers running around the board. It could be good. It would be fun. I don't think they would be overpowered by any means. So, sad to say, Gene Stealers are going to be my unit number 4 that just wish they had a little bit of a buff there. Now, on to 5, and this one is sad. The Norn Emissary here, she was the new premier monster, along with the Assimilator. But this was the standout one. She was going to be the big scary thing that Tyranids got to bring to the battlefield. It's got great defensive stats. No one could deny that. An amazing ability with the objective control. It is an expensive 300 points, yet it is only strength 9 on its big claws. It's only got 6 of those attacks. The little claws, talons at strength 9, the little claws at strength 7 are very much whatever. But it's all focused around these big claws are only strength 9. In my opinion, that is a travesty. This is your big monster. It's often going to have to go up against tanks. You are paying so many points for this that you have to send this thing into tanks or Imperial Knight or Chaos Knight War Dogs, often trying to contest with that stuff. When this thing hits with strength 9, it struggles so much to even deal with a simple model that is almost a third the cost or less than half the cost of this thing. And it's not great. I don't know what GW is thinking strength 9 is, that's where we should leave this big monster. It's just not enough. This thing, again, often will take on toughness 5 Terminators. This thing will go against Terminators all the time. Toughness 10, like I said, medium to light vehicles. This thing will always be taking them on. If it was strength 10, that would just make that wound bracket so much better. 2s against the Terminators, 4s against the big vehicles, 3s against the lighter vehicles. But unfortunately, at strength 9, it struggles too much. And like I said, GW is not going to probably change that at all. It needs a significant point cut. Yes, this thing is bulky. Yes, this thing can lock down an objective. But as soon as you get it in melee with some real threats, it really struggles to kill them. A big block of Terminators, Deathwing Knight Terminators, this thing will just bounce off and maybe kill 1 or 2 a turn with all of its attacks. It's unfortunate for it. I'd like to see them, but that is it. So that's what I got. That's 5, 6-ish units that I think the Tyranid Codex is they're just a little underpowered in there. Had we see them get a strength bump, it would probably be much better news for the Tyranid Codex right now. The main reason why, with this strength being such a problem, it makes the Neurolictors be so much more of that workhorse for the Tyranid Codex. That's why I say all the time, the Neurolictors are the only reason the Tyranids right now could be argued to be a high B, low A tier army, is if those Neurolictors do well. If they can't do well, which gives you that +1 to wound, which helps counteract our abysmal strength in melee, well, if they can't do it, then the army is going to crumble. It's going to not be able to do its damage it needs to, and it most certainly can't take a punch like some armies can in this game. So that's everything I got. Let me know what you think. Is there a unit I missed out, or you think you're okay with the strengths being the way they are? Let me know, and I'll see you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.